Welcome to the show. We hope you have a blast. Thanks for making time for the Dealer Talk podcast. Another business leader, here's a penny for your thoughts. This ain't a regular conversation, baby. This that Dealer Talk.
Yeah. What up? Welcome to another episode of the Dealer Talk podcast. Today we have none other than Jeff Hunter, or General Motor Jeff, as most of you have come to know him. He's been on the podcast before. We're going to have him back for another session. Really excited to have a conversation with this gentleman. So without further ado, let's kick it off. Jeff, what's up, dude? How are you, man?
Hey, I'm doing great. How are things out in Vegas right now?
It's good, man. It's been a good. It's weird, especially this season. Like everybody, when we kind of do the intros, it's like how things that you want to say, like, I don't know, man, but if things have been going, the pace that they have been, it's been good for the automotive industry. I think this is the first month where I'm really starting to feel like, so here's where things starting to crunch. But how are you, man? How are you doing?
Good. I'm doing good. Obviously, similar to yourself, things were rocking and rolling there for a while at the dealership, and inventory has been a bit scarce. I know you've been talked to Ali Rada recently, and he's filled you in. I'm obviously from a General Motors dealership as well, and so from the dealership perspective, it's a bit slower. It's interesting though, right? Because where I live in a small community, so you hear about all these salespeople in bigger cities, and especially obviously in the States, all are making so much more money, and because we're such an isolated area, we held pretty good gross in our product. So it's not like this is big culture shock where we're making so much money per vehicle. The effort is obviously reduced, right? You're not having to really work to keep to sell. I mean, you're working to sell the value, but you don't have to work that much extra harder to retain the money in it, because people just seem to understand that if I want this vehicle, this is what I have to pay. So we're not seeing it, so much that way, as some places are, but obviously, things are going in and coming out as, are going out as quickly or quicker than they're coming in. So that's been good for us and myself. Just before this, started, I just talked to you briefly that I've kind of changed positions in the dealership. So most people through LinkedIn or the last time I was on here, I was, full-time commission sales, and I've switched over at the dealership to become basically a jackknife position where I fill in for just about any in the dealership, get paid on a different structure, but also, still hold about 15% of my sales. So it hasn't affected me as greatly as it has, the full-time commission only salespeople within the dealership. But we're feeling the crunch right now. There's no question. And it's just nice that, the last couple of days, we've started to see a couple truckloads of trucks, which is our main seller where we are, start to arrive. So.
Yeah, man. But I mean, are you feeling the same thing? Like, has this been like the first month for you where it's kind of things have slowed down a little bit? I don't know. It's just this month, man. It just really seems like the switch was turned off. I don't know what's going on. And it's crazy because I see a lot of digital activity, but then it doesn't translate to sales. So I don't know. I don't know what's going on.
It's been the last couple months for us, because that's where our inventory, we just sold through everything we had, and it just simply wasn't being replaced fast enough. And I agree with you. You have lots of digital, and I could do digital ads all day long, but if you don't have the product to sell from it, it doesn't matter how much ads you do, because you just don't have, like, a couple times that they said, oh, let's, create a new ad. I'm like, on what? Like we have 3 Sparks outside. We had there's a point in time where we stock, again, we're a smaller community, but we stock between 100 to 150 trucks at any given time, and we had 0. There's one time we had, with 0 for about 3 days. Then we had 1 for about a week. So it's hit us the last few months, and actually it's just starting to look like November might ramp up a bit for us, but we've had stuff in the hopper for, quite some time waiting to come in. Right. So I think every location is different. So.
And obviously General Motors is one of the ones that has had the biggest impact. I think my Chevy dealers that I consult with are definitely in a worse position than most of the other ones. So, what does it look like for you guys? Do you know? I mean, what's the strategy now? Are you guys switching, or like what are you guys doing to kind of combat the situation? Obviously, everybody's trying to buy cars. I get that, but do you guys are doing something internally that's different at the dealership level, or can you tell us?
Well, it's interesting because Well, what is interesting is when you did talk about digital ads or marketing, we have pivoted a little bit in that respect, and doing more ads in regards to oh, centered around ordering your vehicle because we didn't have it. So it's like, you want the vehicle of your dreams. We can order one. We actually implemented, a discount for ordering. I mean, obviously nothing massive, but just to get, some interest in it. And I think just our population, just here at least, anyways, wasn't super educated on it. So it's been more of an education on ordering and I don't know if you've ever seen this before, but within a dealership, I've had numerous times people come in. Well, isn't it more money to order? Well, no, actually, oftentimes it's less money because you're only
Right.
ordering and getting exactly what it is you want and not paying for extra features you don't. So I think it's been an education and going hand in hand with a bit of an advertising, but really focusing on ordering because that's essentially all we've got. We're selling $70,000-$80,000 trucks on paper. Without having them test drive, to be able to test drive or see. So we've had to really, it's re-education basically, is I think what we've been trying to do, anyways.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've definitely talked to some of my stores about doing these car finder pages and things like that for obviously the SEO content, but at the same time to help some of those because I feel like and I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like people are digitally present, but they're still kind of hesitant on purchasing a used vehicle versus waiting for that new car to come. And yeah, I think that obviously that's a good strategy to have, but still, I mean, you know, we still got to pay the bills, right? So we got to find ways to to kind of funnel those people down. Do you foresee, like, tell me about what do you think the future is going to look like, right? I'm interested in getting your perspective on that. Like, let's say when the inventory starts to roll in, do you think that it's going to, there's got to be some massive incentives that are going to come along with all that inventory that's kind of backlogged. What are your thoughts on that?
Wow. I almost disagree a little bit with that.
Okay.
At least initially,
Yeah.
and the reason what I'm seeing, and I've been doing a lot of this from my YouTube channel in terms of talking about the microchip shortage and where we are in the situation, and when GM's getting their trucks and so on, and kind of what I've been seeing is a lot of people on my YouTube will comment and say, hey Jeff, there's going to be massive discounts on these 2021 trucks you've got coming out, or these 2022s that are going to limiteds are going to roll out, and honestly, the problem is, at least, and again, I'm basing it off of my dealership, I guess, so maybe I'm not
Sure.
looking as big a picture as
Yeah.
I should. But what I'm seeing is the majority of these trucks that are coming in are already pre-sold. They were either sold orders and people are still waiting for them, or I've already sold it to somebody because
Right.
I've looked and see, oh, I'm going to get a Trail Boss in 3 weeks. You willing to wait? Sure. Okay, I'm tagging your name to that one. So I don't think that we're going to have this massive influx of over inventory the way that some people are anticipating, at least not initially, because I think it's just going to be going so quickly. I think we're still a year away. Honestly, I really do. I think we're a
Yeah.
year away before we're going to see much of a surplus where you're going to see, like, you can go to the lot and pick out whatever vehicle you want, sort of thing. Uh, Again, maybe I'm different in Canada. Maybe because we do get things kind of second. We're a little second fiddle up here sometimes in Canada, where our whole market is is smaller than the market in California, right? So, but just what I'm seeing is I really feel that we're going to be about a year before we're going to see any remote normalcy in terms of discounts to the consumer. But
No, I
I
mean,
could be off, but that's just
no, that's a good perspective and a good point. I also think that some brands are going to be impacted more than others too, right? So,
fair enough.
we'll see how that translates. But eventually, though, do you think that we're going to get back to a place? I guess the real question for me is, do you think that we're going to maintain the how do I say it? Like, I feel like we've gone 2 steps forward in the automotive industry in the last year and a half or year and 8 months or whatever, as far as grosses and things of that nature. And I'm not naive enough to say that, hey, this is the way it's going to be, but I really hope that we find a way to kind of maintain that in some way, shape, or form and stop and kind of balance that out in the dealer's favor. I don't know, man. I just feel like, going back to the way things were, it's just, it'd be rough, bro. You know what I mean? Like, think about salespeople that have joined, like you mentioned Ali Rita. We had this conversation, the people that have come into the industry just in the period that COVID started, right? And they've gotten used to these, 5,000 plus
No
pound.
concept.
You know what I mean?
No concept.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure.
to bring people back down to $500, $600 grosses and be like, oh shit. I don't know. What's your take on that, man?
No, I think I mean, eventually it's definitely going to get closer to normal. What I had been seeing trending even before the, COVID hit, and again, I'm so GM centric, so you have to excuse, it's just kind of what I'm seeing internally. But I've really been seeing that back in the day, the dealer could, the salesperson could sit in front of the customer, and you had some room to wiggle and barter with, and whatever. And what I was seeing is starting, especially on the smaller units, and it's been working its way up to the trucks, is smaller gross from the manufacturer, and they're dictating what kind of discounts we're having. And so I feel like we're going to be, all dealerships are going to eventually start being sold at just an MSRP level, not necessarily more, of course, but not really less. And it's going to be, here's the advertised price. Here's what, no different than you go to a Best Buy, and the TV is, here's the MSRP, unless it's on sale, which it'll be a blowout of that one TV, that one, you know what I mean. And I think that we're, as an overall though, I think it's going to be a lot less dealer control, a lot less salesperson control as to what the discounts are. It's going to be, here's the MSRP, and if GM's offering $1,000 off it, yeah, we'll give you that, but that's it right now. So I mean, there's no question that grosses are going to shrink from where they are now.
Sure.
But I think it's not going to have as much sway between dealerships. I think it's going to be pretty similar. It doesn't matter if you live in Toronto or Vegas or Sault Ste. Marie, where I live. You're all going to make similar amounts of money, simply just because the prices are going to be more set. I could be way off on that too, but I truly think that things are going to become more set priced, as opposed to having such variation, to the pricing. So between
man, I really hope so, because that's one of the, there's been a lot of, it's weird to say this, but a lot of positives for the industry because of COVID. And man, it'd be nice to keep some of those things just, and make them stick. Okay, so kind of staying on this topic really quick, what do you think about the demand? Somebody asked me this question the other day, and they said, bro, have you guys, and this person obviously isn't in the car business, but they'd be like, are you guys like, have you just sold a car to everybody? Like, are you guys, like, are you even going to have customers to sell cars to? I mean, there's always, right. There's always, there's cycles to this thing, is what my explanation was. But do you think that there's going to be like, once we have that inventory available, you think that that's going to be a situation where we'll have enough to enough people, enough interest for the amount of inventory that we'll have once things normalize? Like, or do you think that we've taken a lot of people out of the market in the past couple of months? Or what's your take on that?
I think so. I think we're going to have enough. I mean, obviously, I gotta think optimistically in regards to that, and I truly think we are. I mean, we got to remember that the millennials are the next biggest buying demographic, which actually I think they are now, and so there's more of them coming. So I think that we're gonna have new buyers. They're going to fill that. And I just think that the cycle, as you just talked about, the cycle is so much faster than it was even, say, 10 years ago, right? I mean, people are, because of how fast the technology. So I started in 2013, the industry, which really in the big picture is pretty, not that long ago, really, but it's going on 9 years. And, if I think about when I sat in a GMC Sierra or Chevy Silverado, then compared to the ones that are coming out in February or March, or, in this coming spring, it's like you would think it's 30 years difference, right, inside these vehicles. And so I think that people are realizing, and especially the younger generation, unlike my parents' generation who kept their car for 10 years or 15 years or whatever it was, it's just not happening that same way anymore. I don't see anyways, nowhere near as much. So this cycle, and the way that leasing is being more aggressive, but the cycle of it being flipped over more often, I think on the new side of things anyways, is going to keep that going. Obviously that, it'll be interesting to see how the used market takes that, but I just think that we'll be okay for the next while. I think that there's going to be enough customers for the amount of inventory that they're going to have. I hope anyways.
Yeah. No, I like that. Obviously, I definitely feel like we're going to be fine for a minute. I think the biggest issue right now is, like you mentioned earlier, is just getting inventory. I think for the dealers that have inventory right now, they're going to be in a good place. And that, like with that thought in mind, like, what are you guys doing on that front, Jeff? Like, what are you guys doing? Are you doing anything different? I mean, everybody's out there trying to buy cars. I get that, but Like, is there any strategy, any specific strategy that you guys are doing that's working for you guys, or is it just pretty much, just a normal, we want to buy your
We're
car?
super Yeah, we're super fortunate once again that we're in a bit of an isolated area, so we've got a bit of a captive audience who doesn't seem to reach out too far, so they're willing to wait a bit more than I think some other areas will, if that makes any sense, right? If you live in
Mhm.
a more a bigger area, you have more choices, more dealers to go to. So
Sure.
we haven't been our hand hasn't been forced as much as maybe some areas where you desperately are scrambling to get this inventory because if we did that, I think my dealer principal is very smart in what he's doing, and he's just kind of sitting back and utilizing what it is we have and not reaching it too far, because the scary part of all this is you build yourself up and you get a lot of, if we talk used inventory just for an example, and you start building up all this used inventory and all of a sudden it doesn't move and all of a sudden the market drops a bit, you're left with with all this money sitting in your hand that you've overpaid on all of these vehicles. And if we're not forced to do that, we're not going to do that. So the majority of our trades have or our used vehicles have been coming through trade. We have, though, and talking something I forgot to mention, we talked about advertising. We have been advertising more recently about buying your vehicle. So we've definitely bought more vehicles in the last 3, 4, 5 months than we had in my whole career there probably. So, but from
Wow.
local
Okay.
residents, right? Yeah, from local people. As we're not talking going to auctions, because the auctions are just ridiculous. As far as I'm
Hmm.
concerned, you're paying so much, and by the time you bring it back to our small community, yeah, the stuff's so overpriced that it's just a real risk of it sitting there, and then you're losing money on every unit that you've bought, right? Or a good portion of them, again, because people are willing to wait to get what they want. So at least where we are.
But as far as like, are your processes different? Do you have like a buying team? Are you offering some sort of incentive beyond, like, like, is there anything you mentioned advertising? Like, what's your advertising message right now? Just, hey, we want to buy your car, we'll pay you more than KBB, or like, what's that message?
Yeah, it's again, it's been in doing a used ad. So obviously I do some of the ads for our dealership. Never would I've incorporated the fact we're going to buy your vehicle. Just here's our used vehicles, right?
Yeah.
Come buy one, sort of thing. And now incorporated in it is showing a big sign that we have out on the road, the highway, talking about the fact that we'll buy your vehicle because there's never been a better time, right? Like, and it's, as a salesman, it sounds like there's always never been a better time, no matter,
Right.
no matter what you're selling, but there
But
really hasn't, like,
this time is
like
real.
legitimately this time, I swear, don't, none of the other times.
That's
So I
funny.
know it sounds funny, but because we hadn't advertised that way, we really weren't that kind of, cliche advertiser in the past. I think it's been resonating a bit more with our local clientele, where we've just been incorporating that. As far as processes, no, we haven't really changed a whole lot. Our dealership is so small. I know I'm a boring guest because I have such a small dealership, but our dealership's so small. We don't have the we don't have the need for having a specific team like that, because we can pretty much handle. We're very well versatile where our dealership is, so we can put different people who already do other jobs into those positions where, but basically it's just our used car manager is handling that on his own. So we've been fortunate in that
Yeah.
respect, actually, as well. So
One thing that I've been thinking about, and these are just things that I think about, on my drive to work or whatever, and just kind of ponder what the future is going to look like. But do you think that we'll have a situation where we'll have buyer's remorse once we have cars, and people that purchased during this time might be like, well, I really didn't want this car, but there wasn't anything else available. Now the car that I really want is there. Like, I mean, do you think that we'll have like weird situations like that? I mean, I know for sure we're going to have situations of people trying to get rid of their car in a couple of years and being in some very funky deals. But what are your thoughts on that, man? Like,
I think 100%, because I've seen
yeah,
that on my own. I'm the least pressure salesperson that you would ever come across. And there's people that have, I know that they're in lease trucks, or they bought trucks right now because they need it, whether it's for their business, whether it's their lease came up, and we can we can extend them, some of them for certain periods of time, but they've definitely gotten into vehicles that, they're leasing or financed for 7 years or leased for 4 years, which, they're going to want out of, and because it's the wrong color, it doesn't have the features. Like the one thing with GM, which is crazy, is they're limiting all these little things, right? Which it would irritate me. So, an HD radio or heated rear seats, and I know to some people that might not be a big deal, but if you're somebody who's come accustomed to that and is used to that, and you're selling for something else, and then you're seeing them come on the lot,
Yeah, right.
6 months later,
Mm.
and now you got to wait another 3.5 years to get out of it, or whatever it is. Yeah, no, I truly believe there's going to be a lot of buyers, and I'm talking the little stuff. I'm not talking about the person that bought a mid-sized truck because there was no full-size trucks, right? Or a smaller SUV than they needed because there was no 3-row SUVs, and I've personally seen that myself as well. But people have written vehicles off, or their leases are up, like I say. So I think people there's gonna be a lot of people with buyer's remorse, which I've never had to face before, because I've never had to twist somebody's arm to buy a vehicle.
To
And my
do
whole
it
thing is to
right.
educate. Well,
Yeah.
my whole I don't want to say stick, because it's not a stick. My whole reality of my sales has always been, I want to find the best vehicle for that customer that's going to suit their needs, because I've asked the proper qualifying questions, or I already know that person. And now I feel like I'm selling vehicles sometimes to people that they don't really want, and they know that they're getting into that, but I don't think they truly realize what it's going to be like to carry that for, because a lot of people are up here, we're financing 7 years, right? So you're not getting out of that in 2 years,
Yeah.
especially if you roll negative equity into something.
Right.
So,
yeah.
yeah.
But I wonder also, there's opportunity in that as well, right? I mean, I mentioned this on my episode with Ali. I was like, dude, like, should we have done more used car leasing or something, like a short-term deal with people, and just put them on that car for that moment, and then wait till they got the car that they want? I don't know. Like, I feel like there was, maybe still is, some opportunities to get creative with that. And I think that you get a chance to make money now. You get a chance to give that customer an experience that's truly unique and different. And then ultimately, I think you get to give that customer, what, to your point, what they want. But I don't know. What do you think about that? You think there's something that we could do as dealers to maybe get creative with that, and
Well,
end up
here's
winning
the
more?
thing. Here's the thing is, you have to be careful about how you're selling these vehicles right now. Then, right? I mean, one thing that we have not done as a dealership is, although we're selling for MSRP, we're not asking. We've never put an addendum on any vehicle we have in our lot. We've never overcharged for any. And I'm not saying that there's not, not the right, or the thought process in a lot of dealers' perspective is wrong in that. I'm just saying we have not done that. And
Why?
so I think that because we look big picture, and at least that's the way I look, and I'm glad my dealer principal is the same. And we look at it, the fact that, why do we want to?
Customers won't forget, man.
That's it. Customers'
Yeah.
memories are long, and,
Yeah.
and so I look at it from the perspective of, like, we had this conversation actually with my sales manager the other day about Corvettes. We get very little of them where we are, and the example we talked about was basically, a lot of the people that are buying Corvettes in our area are the more affluent people. They buy a lot of vehicles from us, all that kind of stuff. And regardless of that stature, I'm just using this as an example. Do we want to, for lack of better terminology, piss this customer off, charging $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 more for this car, which they've already ordered, right? Because we just have them on the list. We haven't actually, worked out the numbers for that one sale, like, to make more money on that one sale, but lose potentially 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, because that person is a return customer. They own 3 or 4 vehicles, because they're not going to forget that, right? They're going to
Right.
remember that, that you've overcharged. And then the flip side of that too is, you're getting the average person who's buying a Chevy Equinox or a Blazer or whatever, and you're charging 3 or 4 or 5 grand more for it. And then you're expecting to try and get them out of it in a couple of years. Well, good luck, because the market's down and they already paid more than what the discounted market's going to be. Because, like you say, when we talked about earlier, it's going to come down a little bit. Discount's going to be there a little bit.
Sure.
And now
Sure.
we've charged above that by a wide margin. Well, good luck at getting some of these people out. So we're like I said, looking big picture, in the sense that, yeah, we're going to take a little bit hit now, but hopefully that'll leap us ahead of some of the people surrounding us that aren't doing that. I mean, there's General Motors dealers who aren't giving what we call preferred pricing, and we are. There's nothing nowhere that says you have to do that, but we just feel like we're still selling everything we can get. We're selling it at full retail, right? So it's not as though we're losing any crazy money on the vehicle that we're selling
Sure.
itself. We're just not overcharging, and we're putting ourselves in a good position. So what you talked about, is somebody has that buyer's remorse, that maybe we can get them out a little earlier than what they anticipated, or that we would have if we would have overcharged for it to make that extra couple $1,000, right? When we could sell them and their family 3 vehicles as opposed to that one at an extra charge. So.
Yeah, and that's a good, I agree with that. I also understand why you want to do it in some cases too, because if you're the only one and you want to maximize it, like I understand both points, but you're talking about being in a captive market. So the question that comes to mind is, does it make sense to do it there, because where are they going to go? Or does it not, or does it make sense to not do it because where are they going to go? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but I think at that level, it's to go to another brand. The brand loyalty has
Right.
gone out the window for
Sure.
the most part.
Sure.
So, I'm at captive audience for the people who are willing to wait because they do like it. But if you've pissed them off enough, you've ticked them off enough, then yeah, well, I'll go to a Tundra. It doesn't, or I'll go to a Ram, or I'll go to an F-150. They're all making good product now. And so the loyalty wasn't there that it once was, especially the generation younger than me. There is no loyalty. So whoever looks the coolest, whoever's the best price. Or that's what I'm finding. Honestly, it's not. Whereas, my dad wouldn't be caught dead driving anything other than a General Motors product, right? But that's fading away. So if you take that customer off, they will go to another brand. Just because it's a captive audience doesn't mean I don't have other brands. But I do see your point that we probably could capitalize on that. I just think it's something that we have made the conscious choice to not
Yeah,
do.
I mean, personally, let me just say that I think it's really cool. You guys are not doing. I think you're setting yourself up for success later on. No question about it. I think a lot of dealers are going to find themselves in some funky situations here in the next couple of years. I also think that the customers understand, for the most part, what's going on and why this is happening. But as I've mentioned several episodes in the season, as I've seen, dealers high five each other and congratulate themselves for records and things that are really not related to anything that they've done. It's just a market thing. I've seen negative reviews go up too. So
Right.
I think that's a big indicator that, customers are forced to do it, but they're not happy about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and how hard do we work, and how much money and how hard do we work to get good Google reviews, to get good reviews, and to flush that out down the toilet to make, a year's, worth of extra gross on product that, again, if you're a dealer principal who is planning on being around for 30 years or 20 years, it's easy for me to say, hey, listen, I'm not the one paying the bill, so it's super easy for me to say, I'm not the one paying to keep the lights on or paying the employees or, paying, whatever. But I just think from a long-term perspective, it's I don't know. I guess we'll see. What
yeah,
happens, right?
exactly. Yeah. So I have a question for you. It's kind of in line with what we've been talking about, but I'm starting to get more curious of this concept of digital retailing and online sales. But when I talk about that, I just hate the digital retailing conversation, because it's not a full blown online sort of a deal. It's not like, don't come to the store at all, like do everything online and the car gets to you, like, and I even hate mentioning these companies on my podcast, but the Carvanas or the Vrooms. So, like, I mean, it's not really, we're not talking about apples to apples here. But have you seen any sort of demand at your store for people that actually want to buy that way, to actually get that car shipped to them? Is that, like, through COVID? Have you seen a spike in that sort of activity, or has it been just pretty much the same deal?
No, there definitely hasn't been a spike in anybody wanting to have their vehicle delivered and do the whole purchase online. What I have seen a spike, and there's no question of, is first of all internet traffic, obviously,
Sure.
and just streamlining the process. So the two ways I look at it from a salesman perspective, slash, just from being a dealership perspective, is number one, it allows us to streamline the process before the customer is there. So, if you can get enough videos and education, and you can respond to questions well over online, and do all that before the customer comes in, it makes the sales process obviously much quicker, provided you have that vehicle, right? Because
Right.
otherwise
Yeah.
the
Of course.
process is just as long
Yeah.
as ever or longer because of ordering. But so that allows us to sell to those people quickly, and then people we have to wait for, then well, we have that extra time for that, right? So, and then as a salesperson, it's allowing me to, because at least now, and I think for the next little while, it's not as much closers anymore, right? You're not having these people that have to be aggressive, like slick salespeople to get these sales. It's the relationship of like people knowing who you are before they come in, differentiating yourself from everybody else out there. So to me, there should be a massive focus on people doing what I was doing or I'm doing is getting yourself out there to people who want to watch your content. They want to see who you are, what it is you're selling. They already know you before they come in. So along with streamlining the process of the product, they're streamlining the process of who the heck it is I'm going to deal with
Yeah.
before I come in. So I think I see a lot that way, but just because they know me, watch my stuff, we've communicated online, doesn't mean they want to buy the car online. They still want to come in, touch, see, touch, feel for the most part, but still be physically there to do the deal. I don't think I can count on more than one hand the amount of vehicles that we've done from start to finish simply online. So, but there's still a massive need for it.
Yeah. But so could you, I mean, can you do that for customers?
Now more than ever, businesses need more efficient sales. That's why thousands of dealerships trust Foureyes to help with things like automated inventory email updates and ensuring all of your leads get into the CRM. To try Foureyes for free, visit foureyes.io/dealertalk. That's foureyes.io/dealertalk.
Can you actually do that?
Yeah.
Can you actually do the whole process? They never have to put a foot at your store.
Absolutely, we can, and I think we've been able to do it obviously for
For
forever.
a
There's
really
so
long
many things we've been able to do
Yes.
forever that we
Right.
just haven't ever promoted. Hey, we can get your vehicle and bring it for service. We can deliver your vehicle after it's sold. We can. There's so much stuff that people. Oh, you can? Yeah, we probably could have for multiple years, but just like everything else in the auto industry, everything is so slow moving unless we have to. That it's crazy that we're as large of an industry we are, but yet we're as archaic as we were up until COVID, and all of a sudden we just ramped up everything, right? So,
But so why
I've
is
always
that
found it
though?
interesting.
Why don't we promote it, for example? Like, why don't we have like, I don't get it. Like, what's
I
your
think it's
take
just
on
the
that?
extra work. It's the extra work that, you know what I mean? Because there's no question it takes a bit of extra work. And if nobody else is doing it, well, why do we have to do it, right?
Right.
Like, whereas now it's like if one other dealership, if one out of the 17 dealers or 15 dealers or whatever where you are doing it, well, then like, damn it, now we have to do it, right? So
Yeah.
I think it's literally just being forced into doing it because of being just unmotivated to differentiate yourself, right? So we've definitely been ahead of the game locally in terms of which obviously some people are getting caught back up on now, but as far as the digital world, but we definitely didn't put our foot to the pedal in terms of like offering the delivery services and things, which we do, but we don't make a massive deal of it because again, in our area, most people aren't really offering that too much anyway. So we're as guilty as anybody.
So were you guys one of those dealers that didn't have, do you have digital retailing now? Did you have it before COVID, or was it after COVID that you guys jumped on the digital retailing train?
Yeah, we don't have like a huge thing set up for it. If somebody wants to do it, we can facilitate how to do that, but we don't have like here's how you do it. You know what I mean? Like there's this set template on our website to buy. Like it's just like if somebody emails in, we can, oh yeah, we could do that. We'll bring the paperwork to your house. We'll do, but we don't have an infrastructure set for it. And I think basically again, because we just don't find that we're being requested enough for it to invest the money to get it set up. Does that make any sense? Like
Sure, totally.
to do it like in a massive format way. So can we work around it and do it? Yeah, but it's not a slick setup system that we have where somebody can just go on there, like like a Tesla or something, right? Where you can just order it online. We don't have anything set up like that.
Were you guys shut down, dude, during COVID or no?
Yeah.
At any point?
For a few months, for a few months, and then even when we came back, there's just such ridiculous regulations. And I shouldn't say ridiculous because don't get me wrong, I think I this is a crazy problem that we have. But
Sure.
when we came back to work, it was like you had to have an appointment. You can only have so many people in the showroom. I got that. Then it went to you can go for a test drive but only 2 people could be in the car. So if you had like a family, you couldn't go, or if you went, all the windows had to be down. Well, guess what? I live in Canada. It gets like minus 100, here sometimes. I'm not rolling around with the windows down. Like it doesn't. There's just some ridiculous regulations, right? And so they've been backing off that a bit. Obviously, we still have, you got to sign in when you come in. You still have to wear a mask. Like we're still. Ontario, Canada is still like probably one of the most regimented places in the world, actually, right now. So we're still facing some hiccups in regards to that. But we were physically completely service sales shut down for a couple months.
So you couldn't. Did you guys try to do anything online? You couldn't do anything.
We looked at it, but we didn't think it was going to be 2 months. So like, we're like, oh yeah, we'll do it. No, we don't need to do it because it's going to end soon. It's going to end soon. And then we were starting to get ramped up, and then we were able to sell. So we didn't end up getting anything done that way, because again, it's one of those things where nobody was doing it where we were. Everybody was in the same place. Everybody was closed down. So it wasn't as though we were, losing. It sounds really bad, but it's not like we were losing sales to 3 other dealers that were doing it, sort of thing, right? Sure. So, and we all anticipated it was just like a week thing, then a 2-week thing, and then we thought it was going to be nowhere near 2 months. So I can tell you that for sure. So, and we were able to sell in specific situations. So like if somebody if their car was broken down, they had to, like, what I mean, we could do that, but we weren't able to, and we really weren't advertising because we were trying to be sensitive, right? So at that particular time, it's like we weren't aggressively going after the business because we didn't want to become insensitive to the situation that we were going through, right? So yeah, right. It was a catch.
Come buy my car, the world is ending.
yeah, right. Like, I know you're worried about you and your family, but we got some trucks in, and right. So it was we weren't super focused on that at the time. So
good. Yeah, man. I wondered what that would do. I think we're far enough into this deal that I could start having these conversations, but I wondered if that was going to really showcase this need for people, or this want rather, for people to have that full process done online. Because you would think, right, that now would be the perfect time for customers to be like, yeah, dude, I'm not going to your dealership. Like, just ship me the car or whatever. And I just haven't.
I fully think, and I'm very surprised. I think I'm the same as you. I'm surprised that we haven't gotten there yet. Again, simply because we're growing up in the age of Amazon, and that's how most people younger than me know how to buy. They weren't going to the malls. They're not, you know what I mean? And so it only makes sense that automotive be that way too. And I think it is going to get that way. I just think that generation's got to grow up a little bit more, to where they're the ones with the money that are buying these products. And I think we'll see that a bit more. But man, it's I agree with you that I thought if any time, this is the time that would have pushed us, leapfrogged us, pardon me, to that point. And at least where I am, I don't see it. What do you see where you are in more major centers in the States? Is it similar to what I'm seeing here?
Yeah, man, I'm not seeing that at all with any of the stores that I mean, for a bunch of them, despite my counsel, a lot of them jumped on these digital retailing programs where it was like 60 days for free, and some of the stores, they tried like 4 different ones, and then finally it was like some of them, or for the most part, they just ended up taking them off because they didn't see the push. It just creates, that's a process that creates a ton of friction, because the majority, I mean, I hate to generalize in this way, but dude, it's just my experience from all the stores that I work at. The customers are dishonest, man. They put this crazy information that's not real on these digital retailing platforms to get their payment to a certain number. And then they walk into the dealership and they expect those payments. And you should see some of these conversations. You're like, they're really upset that the deal doesn't match their experience online, but their credit is like, it's a 540 credit, and they work their deal at a 750, and they're expecting the same payment. It's like, dude, like, come on, man. Like, are you serious? Like, this is a joke, right? It's just insane. And I just see it over and over and over and over again, to the point where it's just like, I'm just not a believer in the digital retailing experience. I feel
that is one that you're right, though. That is one area.
Yeah, man, I think it sets the dealer up to fight with the customer still, So I know, I'm sorry.
No, I'm agreeing with you in saying that, that's the one area, because we're not there as the salespeople to educate the customer as to, what it is they're looking at or what it is they're doing. And one of the things we've implemented recently is, in a different way, but we've implemented more now where people can do their trade appraisals on our website, and we're seeing a lot of that, which is great. It's a point of contact and everything else, but sometimes it gives an unrealistic expectation as to what they're going to get for the vehicle, especially if they do it now and they come in 3 months from now. Well, I looked it up, like last week. Meanwhile, you look it up and it was 3 months ago, right? And the
Yeah.
market is so fluid; it's changing by the hour sometimes. So, but yeah, like you say, from the credit perspective, it's the education of, just because you put in 0% to 96 months, we don't offer that to begin with,
Right.
to that extent, to that term. And like you say, you're just in credit counseling 6 months ago, so you're not
Right.
going to get the best rate.
Like,
No, I
why
agree
are
with
you
you. I
upset? Like,
100%.
I don't get it. Like,
Yeah,
why are you mad?
yeah, I
Look,
agree.
what do you think about this? This is an idea that I've had. I haven't set it up anywhere, but I've had this idea. It's very it's old for digital, but I really want to test this out somewhere and just create a button that says buy online truly or something like that, right? Like, for real, buy online. You click it and it's just a form, dude. I know it sounds stupid, but it's a form that really explains the 5 steps, because you can't just, I don't know how what the Carvana process is, or the Vroom. I don't know how they, but I know that the dealers here, you got to have at least a third party company like a Maverick or somebody like that verifies that information, that the person at the other end where they're receiving the car validates their information and stuff, to to avoid fraud and things of that nature. So you got to bake that into that process. You got to let the customer know about the trade. I mean, there's all these different steps that you have to do. And I feel like if you just told the customer step by step and you just explained it out, dude, and then you said, okay, do you want to do this for real? Fill this form. You know what I mean? And then the BDC person has a process for those types of leads. Like I have this store that I work with. It calls them virtuals, right? And has that form comes in, and then there's the virtuals process, and it's specifically for that type of customer that really wants to. I don't know. I feel like, to me, that would be more effective than a digital retailing tool. It just pisses people off and doesn't really offer the ship the car to my house experience. I don't know. I'm at this
No,
point.
I I think that's a great idea. The downside is the majority of the people who are doing it are like they have no time for anything for whatever reason. So like they're the ones that are just going on there filling something out quickly. They don't want to read a
Right,
five-step thing because
exactly.
that's too hard. Like it's
Exactly.
too much work to do that. That's why I'm online, right? I agree with you, and I think that makes the most sense. People you're going to get that would be the reasonable people that would probably understand when you explain the other process to them. But no, I agree with you though. Like, and I think that'll definitely work when we get to a point where people are doing more online sales and they're used to having to do, but it gives you more, like you say, a real world expectation as to here's what's going to happen. Here's what the real price is going to come out to. And we've actually we're doing that a little bit in the sense that we have, focus on our website right now where, and I'm learning this because like I said, I've been taking over for some BDC work at our job to fill in for somebody. But we have the trade appraiser, but we also have we have our full on credit app, right? So you can fill the whole credit app on the vehicle, and more times than not, I will call that person and say, hey, listen, what's the vehicle you're looking for? What's your expectations price wise? And we also have an area on there where they can just check their credit score. It's a soft check, right? And I've been finding
Mm.
that that's been allowing us to really focus that person on, if your credit score is terrible, I'm not trying to sell you a Denali. Like, it's not going to happen. And 90% of the time, that's the truck they're trying to get, right? There's the top end. So it's like, temper the expectations. Here's what real world is probably going to be like. Here's what your interest rate's probably going to look like, and so that they're not coming in pissed off. They kind of have the expectation before they even set up that appointment with said salesperson.
All right. So, kind of moving things along, man. And well, just to kind of wrap up the last thing about this whole buying online, selling online, that sort of thing. The one thing that came to mind when you were mentioning those steps is there should be some sort of, the thing about it is that this is it just requires a human being involved in that process. You know what I mean? Because there's too many questions, man. Like, if
Yep.
do you really want to buy this car online? Have you test driven this vehicle, like a similar vehicle somewhere else, or you know what I mean? Like, I feel like at some point there has to be a human interjection to answer questions, and then they have to continue the process, because then they got to talk about financing and all those things. And then at some point there, before it gets to the end of that, there should be another human interaction just to kind of confirm things. I don't know. I feel that's why I think that this digital retailing thing hasn't been fully baked, and this is a good time to kind of test that theory of how many people really want to buy their vehicle online. So I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. I think you absolutely need that human element there, because even just seeing the chats, right? I mean, the chat doesn't know the right questions to ask. It doesn't know what direction to take the conversation, and I've just been learning this the last little while through the little bit of BDC I've been doing is, you have somebody that's, if you're familiar with GM at all, who's like putting in an inquiry on a Trailblazer, which is our very small SUV, smaller than an Equinox. But meanwhile, they were expecting that to be the Blazer, but it's like a $35,000 vehicle Canadian versus a $55,000 vehicle. So they come in expecting, because they don't know what the vehicle is. So there's no qualifying, questions when it comes to having no human element and educating that person on what it is they're even looking for sometimes, right? So
Yeah,
because a picture online doesn't give you the justice of showing how big one is versus the other. So you have to almost have a dedicated person, well, depending on the size of your dealership and the city you live in, obviously,
sure.
to make that work, to propel that forward in the proper way so that people have a good experience. Because I think that's what what's happening too is the few people that maybe have tried it, because there hasn't been the effort there and it's been so much more automated, that they're having such a bad experience that they're not recommending it to anybody else. So that's why it's also not growing, right, as far as the general public. Because they haven't,
Yeah.
like Amazon's like, hey, you know what? Amazon told me my product was going to be here in a week, and I got it in 4 days. And then the next person, well, I might order my thing on Amazon because I can get it. But if the talk is the opposite way, where I tried to get a car and it was a hassle, I could have just might as well went in. It would have been a lot easier and quicker.
For sure,
You know,
man.
that's
Yeah.
that's going to cause everybody to not go down that road. So.
Yes, sir. All right. So kind of moving things along now for real. Let's to completely switch gears here. I want to talk about your social media efforts and YouTube in particular, man. Congrats. I saw something the other day with 15,000 subscribers or something like that, right?
Yeah. Just passed that a little while ago, a couple of days ago. Yeah.
Damn, bro.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Pumped. I'm pumped.
So, what did tell us about that, man? Like, it's really been paying off for you, dude.
Yeah, so it's so I've had a YouTube channel for a number of years, and probably around 2018 or so, into 2018, when I started to do some walkarounds for the dealership. My social media was very much focused to as far as sales. When I was full time, in sales, was mainly on Facebook, right? Because that's where I felt like it interact with customers more. So what I would do is I would do a walk around video, I would make it for my Facebook, and then literally I would just post it, post it on YouTube as like a library. So if I ever needed to go back to it, it was there. It's easier to, and then whatever, I got some views from it, and then so I did that for a little while. End of last year, so basically starting in December, mid of November, but my first month was December. I started to really say, okay, listen, I'm starting to get some more views. Somebody mentioned monetization, which is where you can make money through YouTube. I started to focus on doing my YouTube channel as a YouTube channel more so than just a library, and started learning that process in terms of proper thumbnail and how to do videos and how to keep it interactive and what videos work and what don't, and niching down to the things that work. So for example, I used to do it on just about every type of vehicle. Well, now two things that help me is where I live, we sell 85% of our inventory is trucks, and 85 to 90% of my views on YouTube were trucks. So I'm like, why am I wasting time? And no offense to the Chevy Sparks or Malibus of the world, but I could do a video that took me just as long on one of those and get way more, whether it be feedback or views on YouTube from doing something on a truck. So it forced me to learn my product, which I was already doing, but really forced me to learn, because I'll tell you, YouTube trolls are real. And if you were to ever like misspeak or misinform of any, even obviously just being a mistake, they will call you out on that. Fortunately, I do my homework and make sure that doesn't happen. But if you miss something, so it's interesting.
Yeah,
I think of
I get that, and I agree. I mean, we're professionals, right? But we're also human beings, man. We can make mistakes. Just retract it and be like, "Hey, man, you're right. I made a mistake."
Yeah.
Yeah.
some people get to live on that. I think though they search for that, right? So they want to be the experts.
You found a mistake. Good for you, like jackass.
But the social media part, again, I've backed off the Facebook a little bit just because I'm not selling as much as I used to. But if you're a salesperson out there and you're not capitalizing on this free form of advertising, you're absolutely insane as far as I'm concerned. Two forms, and again, I don't use it for I don't mean to say advertising in the sense you're gonna throw up there, hey, I've got this, vehicle. It's $199 a month, and people don't care about seeing what the price is all the time. They see that from all the manufacturers. They want to see who you are, right? Whether you like hockey or you're a fisher or a fisherman or whatever, you normalize yourself to them, and then you're educating and entertaining them at the same time to give them a reason to be keep following you. And so I've kind of transitioned what I've learned through Facebook and social media for the customers over to my YouTube, which is a separate entity almost in and of itself now. If I lived in a major city, like let's say I lived in Las Vegas or in Los Angeles or whatever, I would love that, because my YouTube channel, would gain me business. Where I live, city's like 70,000 people, right? So like YouTube isn't really gaining me a lot of business per se. If I was able to sell to the States, it would, because I have a lot of people, messaging me from the States. But so that's what I mean. If I lived in the United States, even somewhere central, and you look at, there's a guy.
Come on, man. You're welcome.
Dude.
We'll accept you.
Then I think YouTube would work more in a sales perspective. My YouTube, like I say, is helping me because I still use it on my Facebook. I still posting those videos up there to educate people and hopefully entertain, to an extent. So it's just another arm of my social media, which is now kind of got a life of its own, if that makes any kind of sense. But Instagram and Facebook, man, I'm so old. I tried the TikTok thing. I'm not good at short form content, but I'm not that funny.
But I mean, it is I kind of it's weird to say, but I do see that as a future. But dude, I'm not gonna even as a digital marketer, it's like I'm lazy, man. I don't want to get into another thing. It's like
yeah. And I think that's right. I think you're right. That's exactly what it is for me. I think if I wanted to really do it and then put my head down to do it, but I'm so busy with everything else I do. And I think if I can, you made a great point. If I can kind of just hit on that a bit more, if I have any advice for salespeople out there and you want to really do well with your social media, I think sometimes there's some people that spread themselves too thin, right? And they do everything at 35% rather than focusing on one or two social media platforms and doing them 110%. And I think that's where some people are losing it, is they're just trying to be in every place
everywhere.
At all times. And it doesn't work that way, because honestly, a YouTuber versus a TikToker, they're having boxing matches right now, but all joking aside, like they're very different. They're very different forms of content. And as a salesperson, I agree with you. I think that TikTok is definitely the way, the millennials and younger are getting to know dealerships and getting to know salespeople. But if you're going to do that 100%, 110%, and don't do every single social media platform like in a half-assed way, sort of thing.
Or, like if you're making cheese, then hire somebody to do it for you. Now that's but
that's right. That's a good idea.
I'm of the philosophy that you should do 80-20, right? So 80% spent on whatever your preferred platform is, whether it be YouTube or LinkedIn or Instagram, whichever you like the most. Spend 80% of your efforts there, especially if you're doing it by yourself. And then 20% sprinkle it around the others. Because I was jokingly saying, like, as a digital marketer and stuff, but it's my job to learn these platforms. You know what I mean? It's my job to spend time in there. But I'm not going to I can't spend 100% of my time on all these different things, right? So I'm going to choose to spend 80% of the time that I'm dedicating to these platforms is going to be spent on my number one, the one that I like the most, and then that other 20% I'm going to sprinkle it around, just learning, so that you want to identify trends too. That's why you want to spend the time on these, is because you want to identify the next thing. You don't know when the next Facebook is coming or the next YouTube. And if you can get on that early, then you're just going to win more.
No, exactly. And I've been saying this for the last 2 years on social media in general, that the amount of salespeople versus the amount of salespeople that are on there is like, it's crazy how small the percentage is, right? Or they're on there and doing it properly is even smaller. And so the problem though, I think that people are doing is they're just not doing it. Like they're, you know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? Like it's just they're not educating themselves properly on how to do it properly. And I think that what has to happen right now when we there's no question, although we're selling now, we're making more money, we're making good money, there's still a lot more free time than I think we ever had as a salesperson because we just don't have the inventory, right? So there's no better time than right now to learn it while you have the free time, because guess what, when we start to get really busy and you're hustling to try and make those sales and you're running around and, you know what I mean, trying to keep up, you're not going to have the time as easily to learn this stuff. If you learn it now, it's much more quick when it becomes time. And again, if you get ahead of the game now, you're just that much further ahead of everybody else when they finally clue in, or the younger generation starts coming and selling and goes, oh yeah, we need to do that, right?
Right.
So
do you have, I mean, we're getting close to that time here, but do you have any advice? I mean, I know that you already said like, hey, you should be doing, and I agree. Like, I mean, we've been talking about this for years. I think that was the main premise of our first conversation, was just the value of doing these things. So, but I know that you advocate for it. Look at you, man, creating competition for yourself.
okay.
I know that you advocate for it, but what would you tell, like, you know, can you share like a strategy with somebody, or can you share just a, you know, here, get going with this, just start here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think honestly, is as much as Facebook has been in the news lately, I think it's still the best platform to start off on. I think you should create yourself a separate business page. That's my own philosophy. There's two trains of thoughts on that. I like that because it separates itself from my own, people that I'm going to be inundating with all this automotive stuff that just don't want to see it, right?
Sure.
And so I'm going to the people that I have coming are the people that are actually interested in what that is, rather than me just get it, because then I find that you're not getting the views, the longevity of views, the people that actually care about your channel, which in Facebook's eyes, they can tell, right? If people are just not watching, you're getting across to this many eyes, but only this much are watching. That doesn't help your overall, forward momentum. So my first thing is to create yourself a Facebook page, an entity of who you are as a salesperson. I've always been big on the branding aspect. If you can,
Sure,
brand yourself in some way that's memorable. And I've joked, I think probably even in the last podcast, like, I don't like the name General Motors Jeff. Honestly, I think it's good. I just don't like it. I've never have. I don't like but you know what? That my name is Jeff Hunter. You can't get much more bland than that. It's pretty darn plain. I'm going to get lost in a sea of John Doe's and Sally Smiths and whatever, right? But General Motors Jeff, man, that stands out. Nobody else is doing
Sure.
that specific name and the colors I'm using or whatever it is. So I think you want to start branding yourself as to who you are to stand out. Consistency. I'm not one to speak about it because, again, my Facebook has kind of taken a back seat recently since YouTube. But consistency is, you got to post very regularly, otherwise you won't have the people coming back. You won't have that audience, and it has to be a mixed variation of what it is you're doing. So don't just create a Facebook page and put pictures up of the people you've sold cars to. Like, it's absolutely ridiculous. Yes, you need to do that every so often, but like, nobody cares. Nobody cares except for those people that bought that vehicle. And like, we know you sell cars, so yeah, I hope you're selling cars to somebody. So, like, what I think you need to do is you need to have a walk around video, a tip on something, maybe a funny car meme or a funny meme of some sort that's relative to the city you live in. Get interested in things your city is doing. Like, I'm a big hockey fan, so I'm very much involved with what we call our hometown hockey team is called the Sioux Greyhounds. So I go to the games, I take videos when I'm there, I talk about it, and I like sports, so I talk about sports, right? Some people are scared to talk about the things they like. P.S. Do not talk about religion and politics, and right now, don't talk about the immunizations. Just leave that to the other channels. But like, talk about.
But I like politics, man.
Yeah, it's not for that channel, man. So like, talk about like things you're interested in, because people are scared to do that because, like, well, that customer's not going to see me if they don't like hunting or whatever. Okay, I get that, but you and that person probably aren't going to get along anyways.
Anyway, yeah.
So let's let people know who you really are. It humanizes yourself. And just the biggest thing that people overlook, and I could go on this forever, and you know that, but I'll try and sum up a little more quickly, is just be your damn self. Don't put on, when I'm talking about branding, that's great, but don't create a persona that is not you. Be yourself, because guess what? They're going to come in and they're going to see you. And the thing that I made the mistake of when I started is I didn't put my face in anything, because I do not like my face. I do not like how I sound, which sounds ridiculous because now it's my face on everything. But guess what? Because that's what works. If I do videos all day long, the only people who are going to benefit from that are my coworkers, because the customer's seen this awesome vehicle, but they've seen, Joe Smith's face on everything. Well, when I get to the dealership, that's the guy I recognize. I don't really know who does the video unless I'm talking in the video first and then I do it, right?
Yeah.
So you got to make yourself the focus, because I hate using this terminology, but you're almost your own, business within the business to an extent, and you need to treat it as such, right? So again, I could go on for hours about this, but that's just some of the things. And don't give up, because people expect that you're going to get a return on this investment within the first 2 months. It took me a couple of years almost. I mean, I started it to develop. Don't get me wrong, I didn't get anything, but you have to get to a certain point where you're going to start getting referral sales because of who you are. Retention, because the retention is a massive thing that people overlook. If you're always in their face, they're going to remember you. Like, they're never going to forget that you're their salesperson, because you're always going to be out there promoting yourself. So
yeah, but that's that, and I want to expand on that, because I love that point. You want to be recognized, right? That's the whole point of doing this, right? It's about, we can't say that we don't want to. Yeah, I'm going to do this, but I'm not doing it for. Yeah, well, yes, of course you're doing it for that reason, right? Because you want to make some. You want this to be something that you do that helps you generate some extra income, right? Or extra sales or something like that. But that can't be the reason why that can't be you can't be so focused on that when it doesn't pay dividends immediately, you are discouraged. I think that's where we go wrong with this thing. It's like, we have these amazing platforms. They're free. The audience is there. It has all the elements for success or to help you succeed. But we give up because we're so caught up in the instant gratification of it all. And it doesn't work like that, dude. You gotta put in the time. You gotta put in the work. You gotta create content that people want to watch. You know what I'm saying? Right. So, but it definitely pays dividends if you do it right and you're consistent with it, because if you're doing it and every other salesperson in your local area doesn't do it, people are gonna remember you. They're gonna connect with you. They're gonna recognize you. So
100%.
You know what I mean? So
the more we practice and we do it now, when the other people do start doing it, you've already established yourself as the person, and you're just better at it, right? I mean, just like anything else, whether you play hockey or basketball or you fish or you hunt or whatever, the more you do something, the better you're going to get at it, and the more natural it's going to become, and the quicker you're going to be able to do it. And if you're just getting on the ground floor at the same time everybody else is, good luck getting ahead of anybody else, right?
Sure.
So
have you watched your first video to your last? Have you seen it? It's way different.
Yeah, I wasn't in it. Remember, I just told you, I wasn't in it. Yeah. It was just my voice. But no, my first video was actually a walk around in a 2018 Chevy Traverse, and I've watched it, and it's not as cringeworthy as you would think, but it's definitely not as entertaining as I try to make things now, anyways. But it's there'd be a lot of improvements. The shakiness of the camera, the pausing, not knowing what I'm talking about, whatever. But again, that's what I'm saying. So to now, I could just go and bang a 15-minute walk around without stopping on a vehicle now, whereas that one probably took me 2 hours to do, sort of thing, right? So
did you do it multiple times before you got the final shot?
Yeah, about 3 times. Yeah.
I remember those days too, man.
Oh man, I'm glad that's over.
Yeah,
but that's the point, right? The whole point is you're able to bring that time down so much more. You just become so much more comfortable at doing it too.
Absolutely, man. The other thing that's cool, and this has nothing to do with the car business or anything like that, but I think it's cool. It's that it's there, dude. Like, your kids can watch it later, or you know what I mean? Like, who knows who's going to have access to that and be like, oh, look what Jeff was doing back in 2021. You know what I mean? Or 2020. I think
it's funny because
I was going to say there's a cool element to that I like.
It's funny because it kind of plays into something that just happened recently. So I just put up that I hit 4 million views on my YouTube channel, and I put it on my Facebook like, hey, thanks to anybody who's taking the time to watch. And my wife is smart aleckly as she has, comments and goes, yeah, you can, even though 2.5 million of those are me and your son, no problem. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, okay. So that, but my kids do, like my kid goes, one of my youngest goes to school and like, yeah, my dad's General Motors Jeff. If you watch him, he's a YouTuber. Have you seen? You know what I mean? So there's no question. Like,
awesome.
The family goes and sees that, and most of these kids are like, what are you talking about? Because I don't think this many 6-year-olds are in the market for a new truck. So,
Yeah. But they will be, bro.
exactly,
They will be.
exactly,
And you're gonna be there, man. You're gonna be a part
well,
of
I
that.
hope so. I hope so.
So, this is cool, man. Hey, dude, thanks so much for doing this again. This has been a lot of fun. I really liked this. This feels a lot more relaxed than our first conversation for sure. So, I think
100%.
we're getting better, man. We're getting better.
I agree. I agree.
All right, man. So there is one question that I ask everybody that comes on the show. So let's see how consistent you are with the first answer. But that question is, where do you see the automotive industry headed in the next 5 years, and why?
So it's so funny. I mean, because obviously that's been a lot of our conversation, and I truly do think that we are going to get to that, slowly get to that digital aspect, but we are going to start seeing some more sales come from there. I think it's still going to comprise a very small percentage, even 5 years from now, but I do think that there is going to be a certain percentage of our sales done on that online format. I also think that dealers just simply aren't going to be carrying as much inventory as they once did, because people are starting to get used to the fact that they may have to wait for a vehicle for a little while. So I think that you're going to have the online aspect is going to increase. I think that your inventory levels will decrease. Again, I'm not talking 50%, but I think they might be carrying 70% of maybe what they once did, with people expecting to order. And then what I talked about earlier is I truly think that we're going to be hitting more at an MSRP sales level, where it's not, as dealers, we don't have this flex of, you're going to a $5,000, sway where, where I can discount the vehicle or not. It's here's the price it is. And if I'm here, or if I'm in Vancouver, or if I'm in, Miami, it's going to, well, other than the exchange, but it's going to be the same price at a retail. Right. So, and I think it just has to, because now with the ability for us to shop 7 different places in close to us in a matter of minutes, we can't have this differentiation of pricing anymore that we once did. So I think that and I think that the younger generation is going to start taking over with the social media aspect, right? I think that the people younger than myself are going to start really capitalizing on the TikToks and things out of the world, and it's going to be less of a closer world and more of a relationship world with in regards to the salespeople. I mean, obviously you have to be able to sell, but I don't think it's going to be a twisting it or convincing as much as going to be just here's the one I want, and who do I want to deal with when I go in there.
Yeah, no, I like that. I can totally see that. So I had the folks from S Media on the podcast yesterday, and we talked about how young the internet is, man. When you think about it, dude, like I've been in this business now. October 14th is 22 years for me. So I was 17, I'm 39. So 22 years. And I remember my first year in the business, the internet was like this thing, right? Like to put your cars on the internet was like, what? You know what I mean? And now it's like, you wouldn't run a dealership without that. You know what I mean?
Not a chance. Yeah.
So, but it's only 20 years, man. Like 20 years, it doesn't seem like a long time. I still feel like the internet, as far as the technology goes, is in its infancy. And if we agree that the first 20 years was building the standards, which has been done by the Amazons and the Netflixes and the Googles and all these things, then the next 20 to 30 years is about personalization. It's taking that technology that's already there. I mean, do you remember what it cost to do a website that originally? Dude, it was like thousands upon thousands of like $20,000 or something like that.
Yeah.
I think the store that I worked at paid for their website. Like it was a crazy expensive thing. And now it's, you can get, I mean, not for, I mean, no all intents and purposes of this conversation, not for a dealership, but you could get a $200 website done on Squarespace. You know what I mean? So in some cases they give you the website for free as long as they can manage it for you or whatever. So we've gone, dude, it's been we're on the other side of the spectrum now. And just, I just feel like personalization is really the future here. And I'm excited about that, because that means we're actually going to be able to offer this experience that we talked so much about in the automotive space. So yeah, man, I agree. I think that there's a lot of cool things coming. So, brother, thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate it so much. This has been awesome. Loved connecting with you, man. That's all the time that we have for you guys today. Thanks for tuning in. And as usual, we'll talk later.
We only host a well-respected. The vendor LexisNexis. We don't sell digital marketing.
What you do?
We inspected with our DT vendor management solutions. We come in like the EPA to clear out the pollution.
Take the trash
Go
out.
keep your P&L clean. Your inventory lean.
Now more than ever, businesses need more efficient sales. That's why thousands of dealerships trust Foureyes to help with things like automated inventory email updates and ensuring all of your leads get into the CRM. To try Foureyes for free, visit foureyes.io/dealertalk. That's foureyes.io/dealertalk.